Getting back to the political fight for Arizona voters, from a presidential rally to a Democratic debate, so far much of the action is taking place in Phoenix. For insight into some of the reasons the city is being thrust into the national spotlight, I'm joined by Steve Goldstein, host of KJZZ Radio's The Show. Steve, thanks for your time.
Hi, Lorraine. Good to see you.
What was the headline out of the president's visit so far in advance of November?
There were a couple. One that came to mind for many of us was his approach, the fact that he has not been silent on immigration, though it hasn't been as productive a conversation as a lot of people would like to see. He likes to bring up the border wall. He likes to do all the things that he's doing to keep undocumented immigrants out of Arizona. But from a political standpoint, I was quite struck by when he invited so many Republicans on stage with him, in particular giving Martha McSally her own little sort of separate space to get people fired up. An interesting follow-up to what the president, in his post-impeachment celebration of sorts, the meeting that he held and was talking about different people, he made clear to say that his polling data was really good in Arizona, but Martha, but last night he seemed a little bit more enthusiastic about Senator McSally's chances.
Are you suggesting this visit was in support of Senator McSally instead of just saying, hey, Arizona, I know you're a battleground state and I'm out to get you?
I think the president, if he were to say himself, thinks that it's not quite a battleground for himself, but it is going to be a battleground for Martha McSally. There was a discussion about whether he was going to put down Democratic candidate Mark Kellymore, and he did not do that. Unfortunately, he didn't give him some nickname either, so that was actually probably good that that did not occur. But it definitely seemed more of, Martha McSally, you've been with me, you've supported me during impeachment, you're definitely with me on this, so I'm going to show my support for you. He also, added, he will be coming to the Grand Canyon State a lot more, indicating at least his advisors think it's a battleground state.
What do you suppose voters made of all the mixed messaging?
I think voters are somewhat used to that with this president, in that he is not necessarily consistent in his themes or message. He's consistent in his style. And I think this is almost like, Arizona, this is great, the economy's doing great. Look at your governor, who some critics would say has sort of gone back and forth on his support of President Trump. This definitely feels like a full embrace of President Trump. And I think that mixed message is something that those who support the president seem to say, well, okay, I don't mind this because he says what is on his mind at a particular moment. For independent voters, for moderates, I think they might see this as a lack of stability. Maybe they're looking for the more traditional institution aspect of it, which this president clearly hasn't been a real big part of.
Some of the chatter that came out is that the wage growth in Arizona is up about 4%. Unemployment is the lowest since 2008. Is that an accurate picture of what's happening in Arizona?
Well, Lorraine, I think in southern Arizona, things can vary. Certainly, Maricopa County is one of the, if not the hottest county in the counties in the country, and Governor Ducey has certainly taken credit for that. It's with a political rally and with numbers thrown out, I was asking myself the same question. How accurate a picture is this for Arizona, particularly rural Arizona, which is still seeing its struggles? Maricopa County is where a lot of the new businesses are coming from. The point of emphasis, whether it's Phoenix or the surrounding suburbs, it is a pretty safe bet that many people are doing very well, but outside Maricopa County, much more of a struggle. Pima County may be a bit of an exception, certainly not a rural area of the state, but rural areas are still having a harder time.
So when you think about the two economies of southern Arizona and then, as I will say in jest, the great state of Maricopa, primarily in the Phoenix area, do those two economies complement each other at all?
Well, I think Governor Ducey thinks they will. He's called for the expansion of I-10, which of course will make transit a little bit easier between Phoenix and Tucson. Of course, we've heard about the Sun Corridor in the past as well. There's no question that those who are helping build businesses in Phoenix realize what a resource Tucson is. Obviously, you're at the U of A as well, a major economic engine for the state. But whether they can practically work together and not necessarily compete, that is something still to be seen. But I think if we look at those folks who are a little bit less partisan and a little bit more pocketbook focused, they definitely realize for the state to really achieve the highest levels, Phoenix area, Tucson area need to be working together.
There's a perception, especially since we're in the midst of a legislative session there in Phoenix, that Tucson doesn't get the same attention, which then doesn't translate into the same number of dollars. Is that the reality?
My question would be how much of it has to do with the fact that we still, though the margins are narrow, if we look at the House and the Senate, they're still held by the Republican majorities. Whether this is stereotypical or not, certainly in the great state of Maricopa, it is seen that maybe Tucson, southern Arizona, a little bit more to the left. And I think it's more affected by just raw politics, the fact that many lawmakers from southern Arizona are Democrats. And at this point, at least, we're still seeing those majorities in the Republican favor. I will be naive, perhaps, in my observation with that, but I think it has more to do with, are we getting the votes or not? And I think Republican leaders are thinking, we don't have to go to Tucson for those votes quite as much.